This is the story of a people and a time when Canada's history came ashore to start writing the story we call Ontario. The Wendat First Nation moved to the north shore of Lake Ontario to get away from their warfaring Iroquois cousins to the south. By the mid-16th century, still attacked frequently, the Wendat moved further north to present-day Simcoe County on and around the Penetanguishene Peninsula, which was surrounded by Georgian Bay. They had many villages scattered throughout the region, connected by an extensive series of trails. Because they were named Huron by the French, their territory would become known as Huronia. The Huron-Wendat, a peaceful people who farmed and traded with their First Nations neighbors, were divided into 4 tribes and 8 clans. By the 16th century, they were traveling to Quebec to trade furs with the inhabitants of New France. The Bear tribe, the largest Wendat tribe, occupied much of present-day Tiny Township. One of their villages, Tawanche, was the takeoff and landing point to the annual spring fur trading trek to Quebec. The governor of New France, Samuel de Champlain, was greatly impressed by the Wendat. Recognizing les Hurons as the most sophisticated native peoples he had ever met, he was further intrigued by tales of their homeland. In 1610, in order to cement ties and understand their ways, Champlain sent a young interpreter, Étienne Brûlé, to live and interact with them, and he stayed at Tawanche. After 5 years of favorable reports from Brûlé and wanting to cement ties with them, Champlain accompanied the Huron back to their homeland in July of 1615 with Recollet missionary Joseph Le Caron. Le Caron would land first at Tawanche, to be followed by Champlain a few days later on August 1, 1615. Champlain stayed at Tawanche while visiting the nearby Huron villages of Camaron, Tawagashane, and Ossassane. He would then reconnect with Father Le Caron at the village of Caragua, where the Recollets celebrated the first Mass in Ontario on August 12, 1615. Fulfilling his promise to help the Huron in their war against the Iroquois, Champlain and the Huron chiefs assembled a war party near Orillia on September 8th and sent Brûlé to engage the Susquehanna to help them. The idea was to rendezvous on October 11th for a joint attack in Iroquois territory southeast of Lake Ontario. That was the plan. It never happened because Champlain's force was discovered by the Iroquois, forcing an undermanned, ill-timed early attack in which Champlain would sustain an arrow to the knee. Champlain would be forced to return to Huronia for the winter to convalesce. He would visit many Huron-Wendat tribes and villages, gaining a greater understanding of these people, before returning to Quebec with Father Le Caron the following spring. Father Joseph Le Caron would return to Tawanche in 1623, but would give way to the Jesuits in 1626, who were led by the legendary missionary Jean de Brébeuf, who resided at Tawanche and named it the Mission of St. Nicholas. De Brébeuf stayed for 3 years on the shores of the Penetanguishene Peninsula at Tawanche between 1626 and 1629 before they established the central mission of Sainte Marie in nearby Midland 10 years later. In a foreboding of things to come, Brûlé was killed by his Huron hosts at the village of Tawanche near Penetanguishene sometime before 1634 when de Brébeuf returned. The missions of Huronia would eventually result in the attack of the Iroquois, the martyrdom of Brébeuf, Lallemand, and their companions, and the collapse of the Huron nation. After a bitterly cold and almost suicidal winter on nearby Christian Island, the remaining Huron eventually made their way to Quebec to start a new life. The shores of Huronia lay empty for 200 years. The British saw Penetanguishene as strategic to defending Upper Canada, and Lieutenant Governor John Graves Simcoe ordered the building of a naval and military establishment to prepare for war with the United States, which brought soldiers and voyageurs from their abandoned base on Drummond Island. After 1841, Penetanguishene and North Simcoe soon became home of an influx of French settlers from the Quebec regions of Batiscan, Sainte-Anne-de-la-Parade, Joliette, Saint-Anicet, Huntingdon, Saint Polycarpe, and Gaspé. Many colonists would move on to form other French villages such as Perkinsfield and La Fontaine in Tiny Township, and English ones such as Midland and those in Tay Township. With the influx of soldiers, Métis, and mostly French settlers, Penetanguishene grew, becoming a village in 1875 and a town 7 years later. Soon, Penetanguishene again became the center of the new fur trade as many Georgian Bay tribes, Métis, and fur traders gathered here annually for the exchange of furs as buyers came from all over North America and Europe to bid on the season's pelts. In 1873, a man of faith and vision in the person of Father Théophile Francis Laboureau became the new pastor of St. Anne's Parish in Penetanguishene. Father Laboureau did extensive research on his new parish and soon discovered its unparalleled history with the Huron, Champlain, and the Canadian martyrs. Laboureau enlisted the support of the town and her people in building a grand shrine to honor the 8 Canadian martyrs. Armed with a letter from Prime Minister Sir John A. Macdonald, Laboureau journeyed to Europe and secured major funding from the bishops of Rouen and Normandy and the governments of Great Britain, France, and the United States. The result was the stunning and beautiful Canadian National Shrine, St. Anne's Jesuit Memorial Church, begun in 1886 and completed in 1902. In 1915, an order in council from the provincial cabinet transferred land to the local parish. Soon thereafter, a great white cross on a cement cairn erected by the Knights of Columbus rose on the Towanche Point shore on Penetanguishene Bay to celebrate the landing of Champlain and Le Caron at Towanche. In 1918, another visionary priest by the name of Athol Murray came to be posted at St. Anne's. Here he is, standing atop St. Anne's left cupola overlooking the town. Murray organized Old Home Week celebrations of 1921, belatedly marking the 300th anniversary of Champlain's landing at Towanche. He also organized the unveiling of Le Caron statue in front of St. Anne's. A great celebration was held at Huronia Park, and the participation of the descendants of the Iroquois and Huron First Nations was front and center as he orchestrated their making official peace. Ontario Premier Ernest Dreary and Quebec Premier Louis Taschereau were on hand to witness the grand spectacle. The centerpiece of the tercentenary celebrations of 1921 was the grand reenactment of Champlain's landing, accompanied by the Huron chiefs from Lorette, Quebec, and the Iroquois, Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga, Cayuga, and Seneca chiefs from the United States. Father Murray had great respect for the First Nations, strongly ensuring that Ojibwe First Nations also not only participated in the event, but had their presence noted in photos along with the Huron and Iroquois. Murray even dressed as one of them for the official photo as he sat in front of Archbishop Neil MacNeil of Toronto and his pastor, Father Philippe Brunel, an unheard-of gesture by a priest in the 1920s. Lastly, he left the town with a set of majestic angels to grace its entrance, one labeled Quebec, the other Ontario, symbolizing the peaceful coexistence of the French and the English cultures. In 1954, a fourth Champlain cross was constructed, and in August of 1965, Le Club Richelieu added a new plaque to the site to celebrate one of the region's, Ontario's, and Canada's most important historical moments. A great crowd gathered that fateful afternoon, and among the dignitaries was Minister of Education and future Premier of Ontario, William Davis. Monsignor Murray visited our centennial celebrations in 1975 to rededicate his angels and talked again of his dream of a future great cross. I have always been obsessed with the conviction that Huronia, and particularly Penetanguishene, will one day be recognized as the ultimate nucleus of Canada's identity. In fact, Monsignor Murray always believed that a new Champlain cross should be similar to Mount Royal's Great Cross in Montreal. In the years following Monsignor Murray's visit, the site sat ignored, the plants grew, and the last Champlain cross slowly deteriorated and fell to the ground. One of the most important moments in Huronia's history seemed to have been forgotten. But others had not forgotten their Champlain and French roots, as our friends in Quebec and the Maritime provinces held extensive 400th anniversary celebrations, while securing major federal and provincial Champlain funds to celebrate one of the greatest moments in their history. Even our friends in Northern Ontario jumped on the 400th anniversary bandwagon and prepared early on to celebrate one of the province's greatest historical moments in time. Locally, the tiny township Towanche firefighters have always recognized their association with Champlain and his arrival as exhibited by their newest crest. Last-ditch efforts to save the fallen parish-owned cross fell through. Thankfully, the present mayor of Penetanguishene approached the last cross committee and invited them to bring their dream down the bay to municipally owned waterfront land, Rotary Park, to symbolically recognize one of the most important moments in the region's history. In November of 2012, Penetanguishene Town Council authorized the formation of a new, expanded community-based committee to plan and design a new waterfront legacy project and to plan a 3-day Champlain commemoration event on the weekend of August 1st, 2015, the 400th anniversary to the day of Champlain landing on our shores. To that end, the committee invited the architectural landscaping class from the University of Guelph under Professor Stéphane Bolliger to help design the new park. The 55 students visited the town and parkland to make their own assessment and to meet with the committee. In April of 2013, the students presented 10 amazing concepts and hundreds of ideas for the town and committee to consider. So Penetanguishene entrusts 48 of its prime 70-acre waterfront projected value of $7.4 million to the Champlain Legacy Project to help Huronia, Ontario, and Canada recognize one of the most historic moments in our history. With the full support of Council, the Penetanguishene Champlain 2015 Committee chose and streamlined the students' best ideas into a single unique legacy project that recognizes our past, reconciles the present, and looks ahead to the future. This legacy project will have many key elements, celebrating the diverse history of Penetanguishene, Simcoe County, and Ontario, such as the Champlain Trans-Canada Trail, the Huron-Wendat Trail leading to its Circle of the Four Tribes, the Penetanguishene Trail, the Legacy Walkway with its statues of Étienne Brûlé, Father Joseph Le Caron, Lieutenant Governor John Graves Simcoe, and Father Athol Murray. A new town square off Main Street with a colorful French facade will be the focal entrance to the new park. The key feature of the Legacy Project will be a monument called The Meeting, depicting Champlain and Chief Anons at the historic moment of Champlain's arrival here. Colorfully lit LED symbols in the ground will recognize our many diverse identities: Canada, Ontario, French, Huron-Wendat, British, and Métis. The prominent boardwalk around the shoreline of the Penetanguishene Trail will take in one of the most beautiful vistas seen anywhere on Georgian Bay. One of the most prominent features at the entrance to the Champlain Trail will be a large steel replica of Champlain's Astrolabe, and will be Huronia's version of the Sudbury Big Nickel and Wawa's Canada Goose. Our British roots will be featured by a large statue of our first Lieutenant Governor, John Graves Simcoe, after whom the county is named. The Huron-Wendat Walk will feature 2 longhouses and a native arboretum. All 3 trails and the Legacy Walkway will have statues and their own series of bilingual historical plaques to educate the public. In one of 3 retention ponds will be a large stone turtle, sacred symbol of many First Nations peoples. Our 3-day commemorations will have as its centerpiece a reenactment of Champlain's landing, coming to the Huron-Wendat homeland and the beginning of 400 years of French heritage. As in 1921, we wish to mark this milestone with events that could include a parade, heritage meals, concerts, and performances on the newly constructed amphitheater, and definitely ending with fireworks. As we celebrate together, let us not forget our hard-working pioneers who have left us a strong cultural legacy through our many traditional stories, songs, and dances. And so we take up the challenge, as Father Murray did in 1921. Let us all come together. Let's celebrate Ontario, Canada, Simcoe County. This is our moment in history. We must not let it pass unheralded.